Okay, folks, let's get started. Or let's get continuing. All right. Let's move these guys out of the way. Yeah, we're going to have to do a little training exercise when we get done with this. Use a couple of weapon systems in the game. I talked a little bit about the minimum distances and maximum distances and so on forth for the mortars. I have to do a scenario where you got to put a mortar up and fire it. I don't know. Just an open-ended scenario. You know, it's not. I'm not going to like play it and then like play test it. Like, let's just roll with it. I don't know how many turns we're going to play. You know, you got to get this mortar team and start lobbing some rounds up there and hit with a mortar. I don't know how it. I think we used a couple mortars one time, and the American one fired the whole time because it was set up, but the German one had to bring it on the board. I'm pretty sure the game ended before we set that up, but that was the wrong game. That was a game that was done at a convention with a really limited period of time, and I hadn't really thought that through. I think at that time I didn't have anybody really in town to play games with. So, and you know, I'll play solo if it comes down to it, and we'll just film it. You know, it just like I said, it's pretty much for me. You guys want to come along for the ride? You're more than welcome. Grab your ass and have a seat, something like that. Grab a seat and have your ass. So I did, this is 20 years ago. I have names printed out for these guys to redo. I don't know if I actually did this 20 years ago because I've got some French partisans and I didn't have the partisans 20 years ago. Maybe it did. Maybe I did. Maybe I did. So there's some partisan names here, and there's some older names here of guys that are going to be redone. So that's what we're going to do next. I don't know that I have everybody here, but I do have a fair number of guys that look like the old crew that need to be redone. Well, you know, when I say old crew I'm perfectly happy with how they're painted. There's nothing wrong with them painted other than the basing is circa 1996. And anyhow, lots of freaking Germans. I don't need any more Germans. I mean, unless I need some special weapon like a anti-tank rifle or something like that. I don't have any of those painted. Flamethrower. Well, we got buildings. We just need some people to hide in there and flame them out. Okay. So these are the guys that we need to do the second color on, and I bet I dropped this in here, didn't I? Yeah, let's get these. Let's do a couple things. Let's get this out of the way. We don't want to get any water on that paper. I have to undo what we've done. And let's take these. What is it? 3 brushes that are in there. Yeah, let's take them out and see what we got. I got pretty good habits. My worst habit is just leaving brushes in the water. Yeah, I do everything else about right. And it doesn't bother me to leave them in the water. It is what it is, you know. Good old hand sanitizer. You get all that paint that builds up in between the bristles, and then they won't set together. Let's just reuse it again. Let's see if this still has some power in here. The power of hand sanitizer. Somebody claimed on one of my videos. I false claims. Oh, I use rubbing alcohol. It works just as well. Sure enough, so I tried it. I hope it worked better, right? It's easier to find rubbing alcohol than hand sanitizer. It's cheaper. Nope. No, don't work worth a shit. Not on dried paint. Let's do this little cute little Nazi fucker. Actually, we need to neutralize these in water. Now, one of these is not really. Two of these really aren't bad brushes per se. This one's not a very good brush. So this is the one we were using for dry brushing. Craft Smart brush. Yeah. Nothing smart about that. This is Nimac, by the way, or Nimac, however you say his name. I guess you should look up how the hell you say his name. How do you pronounce Niemack? Nimac. Big Mac. This is what I'm used to. You end up painting a figure, and you could, like, I could continue doing all the other colors on top of him because they dry him basically immediately. I'm actually not used to doing washes and stuff like that where I gotta wait a few hours before I could touch it up, paint it again. Like, what? That's just an alien concept to me. Kellner the Machine Gunner, and it looks like an MG34, not a 42. I much prefer the look of a 42 than a 34. I actually don't like round machine guns that are perforated. They're not very attractive. That's it, just from a aesthetic, an aesthetic look. I'm sure there's probably somebody out there that doesn't like the square MG42. take care of this immediately. Got some on his boot. Done. Yeah, it's cold as shit in here. And that's not a complaint. That's just an observation. It's okay. You can get work done to keep you warm. Hustle to stay warm. Yeah, there's certain parts of this house that are really, really cold. Well, right now, sometimes this room gets pretty hot. I mean, I do have a window here. And I don't know what the temperature is outside, but I went to work yesterday and it was hot. Let's change this chat while I'm thinking about it. There we go. Okay. Yeah, I went to work. It was like something ridiculous in the morning. 88 degrees or something like that. Moist. We're gonna have to do something. We're gonna have to use a different brush for this. I just can't get in there. I can't get all up in there. And it's because we're doing dry brushing stuff, not because if it's regular. I mean, the regular brush got in there. Otherwise, it wouldn't be brown in there. There we go. Putting on this little metal thing keeps me from scuffing up the outside of the stand as much. And minimize handling as much as you can. Herr Littmeier. Oh. Let's get this corporal done. The Polish corporal, Olszewski. This guy looks like he runs with Schaefer. Schaefer's my MG42 gunner that has that squat like them. So he's like squat on the ground, kneeling, not prone but kneeling. And Schaefer is kneeling with an MG42. And even though he's not the assistant, he'd be like a junior officer. Junior officer meaning an NCO. He does have a bandolier, not bandolier, but he's got an MG belt around his neck. Looks like they'd go together. That's what you want in this game. You want them, if you have something that's a very important part of your squad, something that you want to be effective, put a junior leader next to him or near him. So when the junior leaders, so that important character can activate on his chits or the junior leader's leadership's chits. Chips, I should say, really. That's what I'm using. I'm using little chips. There's a micro armor game that I bought, and I read the rules. I read part of the rules. I don't read all the rules. Sometimes I'll be like, oh, this is interesting. And 1 to 5 scale game as well, called Clash of Armor by Clash of Arms Games. I don't think I kept it. I'm pretty sure I sold it to the people up in not that way. It's that way, Madison, Wisconsin. What's the name of those places? Can't think of what they are right now. Noble Knight. But what was unique about that system is all the platoons, and when I say platoons, think of individual vehicles, because that's what they were, represented by one vehicle, had this activation number. You'd have to roll to see if they activated. Kind of like if I remember correctly. Of course, if I remember correct. If I remember incorrectly, all bets are off. But if I remember correctly, it's like lying rampant. Some units are easier to activate, but maybe that might not be who you want to activate. But once you activate them and you do your thing, you're going to acquire fatigue. So you can actually react to reactivate them. But they're going to, the next time you want to use them, they're going to be more and more worthless. You can fatigue the hell out of them. I said that was kind of a novel concept. Where you could take something that's, really important, like let's say, you got some tigers or something like that. And you want to keep using them, you end up wearing those crews out. And that's why you got better crews in there, so it can survive the being worn out better than others. You know what you do? The better guys get more work. Just like if you're the best guy at the office, they keep piling stuff onto you. Other people that suck, they're lucky to not be fired. The rest of you are carrying everything else. Just like in a combat zone. That was a kind of a novel concept. Anything that involves a war game where you have to think about, you have multiple choices, there's more than one way to skin a cat. Wonder where that saying got started. More than one way to skin a cat. Guy laying down on the job. Which is why I named this guy Layman. Layman. L-E-H-H. Man, if I'm going to talk like that, I might as well have whiskey in the morning. Okay. I don't really like prone figures. And the reason why is the default I use is no marker next to it means they're standing up. So this guy right now would be standing up. I mean, it looks fine. I mean, it's nice for a variety, and it's a nice figure. I just prefer standing up figures. I mean, unless you're defending, you're going to be spending most of your time standing up. Metzler, another junior leader. And before I got on here, I grabbed those names and I just happened to have that scenario, the group of scenarios from the rule set open, and I looked at it and I saw something that looked odd. I figure I'll comment on it and talk to you guys about it when I'm either at a stopping point or I've confirmed people that are interested about it or online. No point in talking about something really interesting and the wrong people are here. Not the wrong people, but could be Chinese bots or something like that. I'm like wasting my vocabulary on them. The bots of YouTube bots. YouTube's Google, right? Google bots. I suspect these figures are pretty old. Like the sculpting on them is probably from the early 80s, I would imagine. But they paint up pretty well. I have a few of them. This guy's another one of them. Don't know who the hell the sculptor is, though. They frequently don't get credit for things. Yeah, his name got fucked. I've got his spare name around here. I got some paint on it last night. I have an RNs. Thought I did. There he is. Alright, so let's do the first surgery I've done. I've never done this before. No, let's do it a little differently. I'm going to wet this. It's just white glue. It should come off. Hopefully paper doesn't disintegrate. If the paper does disintegrate, well, that works too. And I can do that on this one. I'm changing the font, but I'm changing it right back to this font that's on it. So this guy's one of the later Germans. He actually has the correct font, or the font that I want to use. We're just going to cover this and then we'll see if it lifts up. If not, we'll replace the whole thing. Now the other ones, they have a different font. I don't know that I'm going to be able to use the same little piece of wood. I may have to rip the whole piece of wood out and just add a new one. This works just as easy. These stainless steel blades, we'll find out shortly. Probably not. Made from the finest junk metal in China. Oh, look at that. I did these a different way. I glued them down and then painted green around them. Okay, I don't do that anymore. Cool, that means the old figure, I hope the old figures are that way. That ought to be helpful. Yeah, so now all I do is just grab some brown and the name will fit right where it is because it's literally the exact same name, the exact same font as was on there before. I'll have to check that with the other ones. I have a feeling that it won't work with these. I have a feeling I'm going to have to use a longer piece of wood because this font's a little bit bigger. This is what I should have done probably with all the figures. Instead of trying to paint that brown around, just take the label off. Just put a new label on there. Orange. Good morning, both of you. Actually, it might just be one of you. I could be the other one. I don't know exactly how that works, but I do have the video up here in case I lose the feed. I'll know, and I don't just keep going for another 30 minutes or 45 minutes like I did that one time, wondering why nobody was commenting. The internet's weird. You got to keep an eye on it. Yeah, Sunday is a more popular morning for me than Saturday. Saturday must be honeydew list morning day. I don't know. You've worked all day. Honeydew list can wait till Sunday. I need a day off. Well, I washed my car on the way back from work yesterday, and since we got the garage clean, it went in the garage. And with storm last night, my car didn't get trashed. By mean trash, it doesn't have pine needles all over it, because that's what happens here. You gotta have a pine needle salad all over your vehicle. Which I didn't realize pine needles kind of stain things. You know, not permanently. Well, I guess they would be permanent if you don't clean it up, but okay, so that's done. So now we go to Iraqi sand. And we do the same thing with Iraqi sand, which is the final the final color. I'm going to keep using this little brush. This has about the right footprint I need for it to have to be able to get in them nooks and crannies. Oh, here we go, those crannies. We're talking about those angry old ladies, crabby grannies. It's a good team name for what's that Car Wars game? Gaslands. The crannies. Now, people still play that. I haven't seen anybody post on that. But then again, I'm not a member of the Facebook group anymore. I didn't get miffed for them or anything. I don't have the energy to do that also. And sometimes you could be a member too many things. You're constantly distracted by stuff you're not involved in. It's been a couple years since I played that. It's a decent game, but it's got some DBA issues, meaning stuff that comes up all the time that's not covered in the rules. Yeah, it's a decent game. Other than the backstory of that game is not my favorite. But you could do whatever backstory you want. I mean, it's not really that important. Okay, let me go get a. We're out here, I'm pretty sure. Be right back. I guess my record on playing Osprey games is not very good, because that's an Osprey game. Right, that's an Osprey game. Lion Rampant's our Osprey game, and Force on Force was our Osprey game. That's the three I've had. And Force on Force I sold. The rulebook's too. I talked about it yesterday. The rulebook's too nice. The rulebook's too nice to use in a game. You're learning how to play the game and you're trashing the rulebook. The rulebook is beautiful. Like, I'd rather not have it. I wasn't crazy about the game either. I just can't imagine taking a book that's hardback like that and have it go through what my 2.2 DBA rules went through. And then Lion Rampant, I played it. There's potential Lion Rampant. Just need to add. It's again a decent game. Let's do the American Mortar, man. But who should have been in the last group of guys. And then Gaslands, also a beautiful rule book. I see some nice rule book and it's just absolutely destroyed that somebody else has, and my soul dies a little. Or writing in books. Writing in books just a no-no. Absolute no-no. I can't do it. You ultimately write a book if you want. You buy it, right? Man, slow morning. I guess that makes up for last night. Last night was pretty busy. I would have thought it would have been dead. Friday night? Who the hell wants to spend Friday night with me? It's people that want to stay in now. They're probably out drinking and drugging. They just decide, hey, let's see what this clown's doing on his YouTube channel. Nearly a useless figure, this guy, like grabbing his hands, like, what do you use that guy for? I'm always part of the mortar team. He's equipped with some kind of a sidearm, in the game, but right now he's just a mortar team guy. He's one of the guys there on the mortar team. Happy Saturday, folks. Just getting started? No, 41 minutes. Wow. 41 minutes and everybody's still asleep. No, but we played, I don't know, 4 or 5 games of Gaslands. Had a good time with it, but stuff would always creep up that isn't covered in the rules. Now that one didn't bother me as much because it's like I'm not going to play it in a tournament. I mean, you could play it as a tournament, but we're not playing it as a tournament. So if there's some kind of a judgment call that we had to make, it's not like it was going to have bad repercussions on future things that happen in a game. Well, it's a race. I guess it's always technically a tournament, but I don't care how much you playtest stuff. There's always eventualities that are going to come up that isn't covered. Or, it's not your set of rules and there's some level of abstraction. If there's some level of abstraction, it's really hard to kind of decide what the author meant by something, because sometimes it's just difficult to get the right answer. If it's something that's just very matter of fact, it's easier to, like, if I played ASL a lot, Advanced Squad Leader, and it's abstracted too, I guess, but not very. The most abstract thing about Advanced Squad Leader is that it's a 2d6 system. So you got this bell curve thing. And I'm not really a fan of those things because it just skews your, a +1 isn't always a +1. A +1 is less powerful if it goes from like a 6 to a 7 or a 7 to an 8 than if it brings, a number that's supposed to be like Snake Eyes to a 3. So it's not linear, and it's, even though I understand it, it's not my preference. I don't prefer 2d6 systems. However, it's still better than pulling a card for a result. That's the worst. The only thing worse than that for me in a game would be something like chess, where there is no random at all. But Gaslands was a decent game. I just don't have the energy to do that and do something else. And I don't know if there's like a big rock here. I ended up burying it. Looks like that was like a rock that got painted over by accident. Sorry about that. Canadian rock. But that was a game that had a pretty active YouTube presence. Not YouTube presence. Well, yeah, YouTube as well. But what I meant to say is Facebook presence. The Facebook group was pretty active. I guess, my age, the time that I grew up in, and the people I play with, I'm not used to a lot of folks that play role playing games and fantasy stuff. It is. It's a different group of people that I'm used to playing with. And that's like the first game that I kind of like followed other people's comments on it. And I'm like, these guys are like cut from a different cloth than what I'm used to. Now there's historical gamers that are weird too, and I'm just not used to. I'm not used to playing war games with people that are extremely woke, or people that get easily offended by stuff. And I'm fine with whatever side of the spectrum you feel about things, but we need to laugh at ourselves and laugh about stuff. And if you can't do that, then I really don't want to play a game with you. I really don't care what people's political opinions is about stuff. But you need to set that aside when you come to the game table. And if you're playing a game where it's like, well, we need to have, a certain percentage of characters that are this kind or another, I'm like, what are you? Like, I don't need a game with you. you know? That reminds me, I was looking at getting a couple tank destroyers. 3D printed, but they don't come with crews. But that would be cool to do a whole crew, you know, because the tank destroyers like M8 Hellcats, M10s, and stuff like that, they're open top, right? Make a whole crew that's, you know, black guys because they were segregated. Unfortunately, that's what they decided to do, you know. But that'd be unique. That'd be really unique. That actually would be pretty cool. I'll look into doing that. I got this guy that I know, his grandfather was in a tank destroyer. I talked about that a little bit the other day, and in the Second World War. And he finally told me what unit he was in, and I found out, oh, that's so you can go online and find out, okay, that's this unit, and it landed in France in February 1945 and went to the front, and it was involved in this cleaning up the Ruhr pocket. It was like the first unit for the first one of the first units that crossed the bridge at Remagen. And you know that stuff doesn't get gamed very often. The stuff that happens in Germany, like the cleaning up the, you know, stuff like in February, March 1945, that could probably have a lot of potential. Unique pockets of stuff. But what I was reading about the tank destroyer battalions is they never were used in a tank battalion form. They were allotted in bits and pieces to supplement infantry divisions, which makes sense. You know, you put all your tank destroyers in one place, and the tank destroyer and there are no tanks show up. You know, you need to spread them out. Kind of the opposite of using the panzer forces or the tank forces. You could want to concentrate them, but maybe we'll do a little bit of reading up, find out which tank destroyers were segregated. That'd be pretty cool. I guess it's going to be a slow morning. Yeah, adding that third color makes a huge difference. I bet if I added a fourth one, it'd be even more. People say, "Oh, a dry brush doesn't look that good." Well, how many shades of dry brush you use? One. Well, it doesn't work. I wish it did. I wish it wouldn't take this long to get things finished, but it does. If you want it to look a certain way. You know, a guy on here last night, one of my regular viewers, was saying he admired my dedication for this project. I said, well, I have to do that. If I want to see this off the ground, I have to constantly work at this. The problem is you'll see other people that'll do stuff like this on YouTube, and you don't see how long it took them to do it or the struggle or whatever. You just all of a sudden, like, they go from nothing to, oh, you have all this stuff and you put on a game. It takes a lot of freaking hours. You know, like you see that person at the gym and they're all like ripped and stuff. You're like, man, I wish it was like you. You don't realize how much effort goes into that. You know, good results take time. So stop watching television and go do something. Because I don't know, there are people that watch TV. I have a feeling we all spend way too much time on our phones. Television is, which could be television games, catching up on shit, reading stuff. But TV by itself, like not getting a choice on what you get to see, yeah, those days are over for me. I and commercials, like, F that. I'm not watching commercials. No, I was girls are talking me into watching some of the Olympics this last couple weeks, last couple weeks, something like that. And there's commercials on there, and I'm not watch. We're not watching it live, but even not watching it live, there's commercials, and it's like, man, how do you? Not only is it commercials, it's the same commercials over and over again, and they're expensive if they're running them during that time, and they are terrible. They're just terrible commercials. Like the biggest offender by commercials here in the United States, in my opinion, Geico. Geico makes horrible commercials that are like poorly thought out, not funny, and just over and over and over again. At least make a bad commercial that's funny. Well, I don't see how people watch television. Just having to deal with that commercial nonsense. One thing that always threw me off about commercials, well, it didn't always throw me off. It just threw me off about it recently. Is we know some people that do commercials, small time. They grab them to do different kind of stuff, and just what they tell me, they 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 go to this place in another city, and they have like casting auditions. And they basically can. That's like a good. It's almost like donating plasma. Hey, Marcus. Good morning. It's almost like they're donating plasma. They spend all day long just to try to see if they get cast or something like that. And then what they do, and this really freaking throws me off, is they might cast, like, there might be like a family, like say there's a dad, there's a father, a mother, and a child, or maybe two kids, and they'll maybe cast for some commercial they're gonna do, right? And they're like, well, we want the dad, but we want that kid, so they'll put the dad with like a different family. I'm like, what? My family's not fucking good enough for you? It's just weird. It never occurred to me that, let's say you see some family on a commercial and there's a mom, a dad, and a kid, that they're not all a mom, a dad, and a kid. They could be like just random people that get thrown together. I'm like, it's a freaking commercial. How are people going to buy your product if you don't believe these people are really a family? I don't know. Maybe it's just me being just too. That's just too obvious. It would never occur to me to do that. Like, we don't like you with them, and we don't like that guy with this one and this one. And it's like, what that. Like, my wife in a commercial with some other dude. Like, the fuck? What the fuck? I mean, what? I'm not good enough? It just never occurred to me that that's a. I just wouldn't make it in Hollyweird. Wouldn't make it in Hollyweird. I'm from another planet. I'm just visiting. Either that or everybody else is. I think we got invaded and nobody told us. Yeah, so this guy had told me about, he told me about this several years ago that, but hey, I should do some tank destroyers. Well, I've been wanting to do some M10s for that one scenario. I just can't find any that are affordable. And I just haven't pulled the trigger on any 3D printed ones because they're either not affordable or they're questionably look like shit. I just don't know. And so I haven't pulled it. I came really close to pulling the trigger on some, but they don't have any 50 caliber machine guns. So I'm like, how am I going to source some 50 caliber machine guns? So I looked on eBay to see if there's a. No, I'm not going to pay $12 for one 50 caliber machine gun, and I can't just use the plastic soldier ones and cast them out of the green stuff because the barrel wouldn't survive. And I don't want them to look like crap, you know, because they're going to look good by the time I'm done with them and put junk on them. So I spent a fair amount of time last night looking into it and see if there was an option, but I wanted to get two tank destroyers and they're relatively inexpensive, but by the time I'm looking at it, it's like $24 with shipping. I'm like, I don't want to just throw $24 at something and just be disappointed. But they're better than the armor fast ones. I don't think I'm going to get the armor fast ones because they just don't have the magazine racks in the back, and you have to have that. You have to have the ready racks. I don't know what the ready rack on a Hellcat is or an M10. I'd imagine it's at least from the looks of the pictures, at like eight. Four on each side. On it's got the back that's kind of like this, four stacked and four stacked. Marcus, you want to be in a commercial and they put your wife with somebody else? No, you would look better with so and so. Why? What's wrong with you? I'm sure that one's. I'm sure that's dry by the time we get around to doing our ends. I'm actually need a second coat of paint. How strange. And some people are really interested in fame. I couldn't care less. Although I am looking forward to going to the next party I get invited to. Not that I get invited to a lot of parties. And somebody asks you, "Hey, what do you do?" And I can tell them I paint figures. I'm gonna try that shit. And I was trying to find that article that I found online. I found this article one morning. I went down one of those slippery slopes that you do in the morning when you're having your breakfast. You're like, you got an hour to basically surf or do whatever. The next thing you know, it's like you're late for work, looking up stuff, and people ask you, what do you do? People always like to ask what you do, and some of us aren't defined by what we do. So this one article said, when people ask that, you should tell them I travel. What? How do you travel? You know, I don't want to talk about work. Don't we spend enough time doing that already? really don't talk about my work when I'm not there. Nunya. The guy's like, talk about his hobbies. I like to travel. I paint little men. What? And women. I've painted little women. I've painted what? How many resistance girls do I have? Painted two. Actually, one was a girl and I turned another one into a girl. See, I'm a sign of the times. I misgendered my figure on purpose. I think there's probably, I don't know what the percentage of female like French maquis were, but I would imagine it's probably at least a fifth were women. I'm just throwing a number out there. It just seems, just from the pictures that I've seen, it seems that that's a pretty high percentage. I should look that up. What percentage of French maquis were ladies? Probably 20%. If I had to guess, that's 20, maybe 25. I don't think it's less than that. I don't think they were sitting at home waiting for the croissants to come out of the oven. I think they were pretty active. Let's get educated. And of course, we're going to look up things on the internet. So, you have to use a grain of salt or so. Good afternoon, but only just. Ben, what was I going to. You mentioned something. You came up and you weren't here. Oh, you're talking about how my dedication to this. I have to spend this much time doing it. And look how much time stuff takes. It just takes a while. And it's not this sidetrack of like this. This keeps you engaged in this stuff. What percentage of French maquis were female, do you think? I'm gonna go with 20%. What percentage? It's at least 20%. Percentage. What percentage of French resistance fighters were. I like this. I like the autofills. What percentage of like it finishes your sentence? What percentage of French resistance fighters were dot 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 black? No, I wouldn't search for that. Probably not a very high percentage. Were soldiers, were British, were French. What percentage of French resistance fighters were French? Probably most of them. Were in Nirvana. No, I don't like anything about Nirvana. Okay, were female. I'm quitting my day job now. Women made up 15 to 20% of the French resistance during World War II. Yep. Yeah. I'm pretty smart for an idiot. I'm just a good guesser. That's why I like playing percentage games. They make sense to me. Oh. Yeah. So I have exactly 20% of my fighters are female. And my French resistance fighters are female. Coincidence? I think not. I did not look that up before. However, like I said, actually one of them is female. I misgendered another one. She just pulled a Joan of Arc and, pretended to be a man so that, she wouldn't be taken advantage of. Well, she's equipped with a rifle. It's not like she can't defend herself. Of course, it is a bolt action rifle, so maybe the next female I should give her a Sten gun. Get away from me. Actually, I do. I have three or four more. And the plastic ones make some interesting folks in plastic. Hit it on the screws. Yeah, that's. I'm pretty smart for an idiot. How's that? What is that saying from that commercial? You can learn a lot from a dummy. I'm a good guesser. You can trust me. I want to get the right answer, not like I want to come up with the answer that people are going to like. No, I'm not the media. Okay, let's get to the truth. Yeah, that's a really high percentage. You know, 2 in 10 are fighting. The other 8 are making sandwiches. I say stuff like that, and I don't mean anything by it. You know, I don't tell my wife to do shit. But I like cracking those jokes, and I do find them funny. And if you don't find my jokes funny, then you probably shouldn't play a game with me. Because that stuff's going to fly all the time. As I was talking about that earlier for you guys, before my wise folks came on here. You know, I'm playing Gaslands, and one of the things that surprised me on this Facebook group for Gaslands is how many thin-skinned people there are. You know, it's these fantasy players that are really thin-skinned. They can't laugh about shit like that. You know, it's very different between, you know, making a joke that is old school and laughing about it and not really feeling that way, you know, but like, oh, I can't even make that joke. Like, man, you're no fun at parties, man. And meanwhile, these people probably can't do those jokes, but then they, you know, touch people inappropriately. Like, come on, man. Yeah, so I'm not used to playing games with the new breed. It's probably a motorcycle. Probably a redneck on a motorcycle. The other night, it wasn't last night, but I think the time before that, when you guys got me wound up all, my wife was like, "Man, you got a lot of caffeine or something in you the whole time." I said, "Were you listening to me? Because, you know, this barn door doesn't really block anything." She's like, "Yeah." I said, "Well, I can say everything that I normally say if she was right here. Or down here, wherever where she is." I don't talk shit about her. And it's not because she whooped my ass. I'm just saying, you know, it's just, that's not cool, man. You're like a team, you know? You don't need to be belittling people. Makes you both look bad, you know? Yeah, so 20% of. All right. So this is what I'm going to do. You got. Oh, here we go. I got me curious. Excellent. That's right there. I'm going to stop you. That's what this is. Let's all open up the pores in our brains that we can think. Got you curious on women in service. According to All Knowing Internet, 800,000 women served for the Soviets. 5%. There were roughly 2,500 female Soviet snipers. Thought you were cruising for a bruising then. There's nothing I wouldn't say with her in here. It's just that's just the way I am. I've known people that behave. It's not very often, but I do know people that behave totally different when their wife's around. I think it's weird. I think it's just very very weird. They're like, oh, she's here. Okay, I gotta put in this cassette tape now. You know, I have to act this way. I'm like, I'm not fake. I may be an asshole or whatever, but I am what I is. I be what I am. And now my daughter's in college, so I don't have to act different around her either. She's seen a lot worse. 5% of women, or 5% of women, huh? Women snipers. Well, I do have a woman sniper. I have one that's definitely a woman. Um, and she's got a Scopes SVT. That's pretty badass. That's pretty badass. Um, how many Soviet snipers have? Pull it up. Like five? Only one of them is definitely a woman, I think. So that's probably the right percentage as well. Um, we were watching that movie, their series of movie, Generation War. And one of the characters, if you haven't seen it, go watch it. It's on YouTube. It's excellent. It's excellent. There's only I can't find a couple of errors every time I watched. I've watched it 3 times all the way through. And the first time I thought, oh, the Panzerfaust. What's a Panzerfaust doing in Stalingrad? And then I found something else, and I found another thing. You know, they're all minor. They're minor war game type quibbles. And there's a scene where one of the characters, who's a German nurse, gets left behind at this hospital, this field hospital that's set up like in this Polish manor house. And she gets left behind accidentally, and the Soviets come, and the Soviets come in and basically start executing German soldiers that are heavily wounded that they weren't able to pull out of there, and they grab this girl and start raping her, and this Soviet woman lieutenant comes in and basically puts a stop to it. And my daughter was like, the Soviets had women in it? Oh yeah, they had lots of women. You know? I mean, the Germans eventually drafted, I don't know if they drafted them, but, like defending Berlin and stuff like that. But, Germans didn't use combat women for troops. They had to make more, make more Germans. Most were medical personnel, it seems. Yeah, most of the Soviet women. Yeah. Well, so I'm going to set this off to the side because you guys are here. Ben and Marcus, you guys are both here, and you guys are probably the most interested in what I have to say. And what I have to say is, this morning I was looking through this. I was looking for this name thing to see if I had these names already pre-printed, because I don't know that I have a working printer here. These names are old as shit. They had these like 30 years or something like that. So I didn't know if I was going to have to, print these tiny little pages somewhere else. So I found that, and I came across this. This is just sitting up here. And this is one of these scenarios that came with the rules, with the face of battle. That's why it says the face of battle. And this is one of these weird ass scenarios. And I figured, I'm going to talk about this weird ass scenario. Like sometimes, you're like, you trust other scenarios because they know better than you, because they've researched stuff. And then there's just some stuff that's just like hokey. And this is one of these hokey ones. I guess it's a tournament. Tournament scenario rules. This is a special tournament scenario where each player's objective is to find the 5 missing Allied spies and accumulate the most points. The player with the most points wins the tournament. Like, I wouldn't have done that in a World War II setting, but anyways, this is kind of odd the way this is. It's called the Secret Army, and it apparently has 3 Allied players: a British player, an American player, and a partisan player. I thought this is really interesting in an odd way. But this is what the squad reference sheet looks like. You got the names of your guys. You could fill out with their names, where they're a private, how many chits they get, their combat value and their morale. In this case, who is this? This is the Americans. Every one of them has 2 chits, has a 60 combat value and a morale of 70. And equipped with 2 frag grenades. And apparently they have a sniper, and a U.S. sniper. I don't have a Private Jackson that has a sniper. I do not own an American sniper. So, yeah, this is what you have to fill out, in normal range. It's only 3 numbers. It's basically, is it short range, is it effective range, is it long range? And they have pineapple grenades and white phosphorus grenades. Pineapple grenades go out to 16 inches. Anyhow, so they've got this for each one of them. Americans look like they have a squad. The British have a squad. The Partisans have like a beefy squad. And then this is where it gets hokey. The Wehrmacht has 3 forces as well. 2 Wehrmacht forces and a Fallschirmjäger. Like, why would Fallschirmjägers be looking for resistance fighters? And one of the Fallschirmjägers has a flamethrower. Like, not exactly, like, we gotta find these partisan guys. All right, get the guy with a flamethrower out there. Like, that's not the weapon you'd want to have. If people are sniping at you, you don't want to be wearing a flamethrower. And a 50 millimeter mortar. It's just kind of like a hokey scenario. I don't know why I brought this up, but I thought it was face up right here next to it. Pretty big map. The map actually looks pretty decent. A barn, a farmhouse, a well. I don't have a well. A cemetery. Yeah. Yeah, this is what they want you to do. Basically, this is what the cards look like. Event cards. Now here's something. I've used chits instead of cards. Event card, wild animal. The soldier has discovered a wild animal. The type of animal will depend on the terrain and location. Examples, deer, water buffalo, fox. Okay, you find a fox, and what do you do with it? He's just there. Peasant. The soldier has come across a peasant tending a field. Really? I thought there was more equality in the 1940s. You serf. You come across a serf. Gathering wood or feeding livestock. Interesting, but not the objective. Oh, okay. So I guess these are things that you can. Yeah. Refugee, prisoner, confidant, sympathizer, a grenade trap, a wolf. The soldier has discovered a wolf. The wolf immediately attacks. Wow, man, you can't even negotiate with the wolf. The soldier's engaged in hand-to-hand combat. The wolf has a combat value of 50 and a morale value of 90. Man, that's good morale. All the wolves are they're elite guys. The wolf attacks first. If the wolf is pinned or broken, it will run off. It's interesting. Wild boar. Man, now we got to do the freaking jungle. Jungle, I have to do groups of trees. I can't do individual trees if you're doing that. Can you imagine going in Burma and encountering tigers and shit like that? I think some of those TD unit accounts in Italy are going to provide plenty of scenario ideas. I wonder how many soldiers were killed by bears on the Eastern Front. Probably not a lot. Well, here's the thing that you don't understand. Here's the thing you got to understand about bears. Bears are pretty badass, but everybody that's equipped with a rifle can take down a bear. It's not like you're walking around with a pistol. A submachine gun would be a problem, but a bear. If you're carrying the Soviets got a 7.62 by 54, whatever the hell that round in the Nagant is, that could take down a bear no problem. I mean, you got to put the right shot in the right place. I mean, if you encounter a bear on the Eastern Front, you want to have like an SBT-40. You want a full rifle caliber round with a box magazine. That's ideally what you want to have. unless you've got a machine gun. But a bear, I don't know. I don't know that many. I don't know that many people got killed by bears. I don't know that many people got killed by wild animals. I'm sure there's some that got killed by wild animals. Well, you pose a question. Let's answer your question. I don't think it's a very high number, if it's documented. What percentage of? Nah, I don't know how to word it that way. How many soldiers in World War II were killed by female soldiers? That's one of the things. Friendly fire. How about by bears? How many? Oh, this is on Reddit, so forget that. There's everybody's a genius on Reddit. And how many German soldiers died during bear attacks? Very likely none, as in zero. Quora is the other Reddit. How many soldiers died by wild animal attacks during World War II in the theater of Europe, Mediterranean, and Pacific? Let's see what these people have to say. I don't have any exact statistics, but you're going to comment anyways. Shark attacks in the Pacific probably responsible for the greatest number of military deaths. Sure, that makes sense. Just on Indianapolis. Okay, here we go. This is interesting. I scanned this. I'm like, yeah, you guys are going to want to hear this. Hey, I'm learning shit too, man. I like you guys asking questions. I can learn some stuff too. You found something about wolves attacking a camp? Wow. Probably cleared off with the first line of artillery and vehicles. Yeah. The only cases I know of soldiers being killed by wild animals are sinking the U.S. Indianapolis and the Battle of Ramree Island. Never heard of this. Ramree. Both conflicts during World War II. The first was highly unusual. I doubt the military ships are often quite so isolated, and the survivors of a sinking ship can usually be picked up more quickly. Or they all drown and get eaten by sharks and nobody finds out about it. The Battle of Ramree Island also featured something unusual. The Japanese were trapped against a swamp and had to retreat through it, resulting in a massacre by the crocodiles living there. Most of the time, the gear, vigilance, and noise of a company of soldiers means wild animals will avoid them. Ramree Island, where the F is that? And this leads into how many animals died during World War II. Uh oh. Put your Peter pants on. Astoundingly, it's estimated that nearly 75,000 domesticated animals, mostly cats and dogs, were euthanized in Britain over the course of 1 week at the start of World War II. What? This is why Britain's at the top of those most evil societies ever. 750,000 pets in 1 week. In the summer of 1939, just before the outbreak of war, the National Air Raid Precautions Animal Committee, NARCPAC, was formed. It drafted. Really, you guys could have just beaten the Germans instead of creating these damn freaking committees and shit. Um, it drafted a notice, advice to animal owners. The pamphlet said, if at all possible, send or take your household animals into the country in advance of an emergency. It concluded, if you cannot place them in the care of neighbors, it really is kindest to have them destroyed. What pomp! The advice was printed in almost every newspaper and announced on the BBC. The pamphlet set off a wave of panic. It was a national tragedy in the making. As there were no rations provided for pets, it was thought euthanasia was the humane decision rather than watching a beloved animal die slowly from starvation or disease. As the war progressed across Europe, the same trend followed along with it. I need to do a show. I need to like, well, I don't. I need to do a show where I look up fucked up things about World War II that nobody would know, like this, and bring them up. There's a lot of interesting stuff that just would have never occurred to me. Hundreds of farms were destroyed, along with sheep, pigs, herds of cattle, and whatever barnyard creature happened to be present. Thousands of homing pigeons used for carrying messages, dogs trained to carry and locate explosives, and horses used in many capacities all gave their lives to the war effort. Food shortages were so great that horses, donkeys, dogs, and other privately owned animals were eaten out of sheer desperation. What, you didn't have any beans and toast? Owners couldn't feed their pets and made a choice to you could give them beans and toast. Um and made a choice to spare them a death by starvation and illness. Wow. According to historical records, the number of soldiers who died from wild animal attacks during World War II in the Pacific theater of Europe, Mediterranean, and Pacific is quite low compared to other causes of military casualties. Reliable estimates indicate that fewer than 100 soldiers perished as a result of encounters with dangerous wildlife such as tigers, bears, snakes, and other predators in those combat theaters. The majority of these incidents occurred in areas of the Southeast Asia and the Pacific Islands. You think? Where troops came into closer contact with unfamiliar and potentially threatening animal species. Overall, deaths from animal attacks represented an extremely small fraction of the massive military fatalities suffered during the global conflict. Logan, Logan Forbes writes an excellent article here about the deaths of pet zoo animals, but the truth is, many millions, perhaps tens of millions of animals died in the wars. The German army alone killed 2.7 million horses during the war in Europe, plus some huge number, easily in the hundreds of thousands of Russian Panji horses, which were much hardier than European horses and used ubiquitously by the Germans to pull all manner of gear and all kinds of weapons. That's those short little Mongol type looking horses. In addition, there's a German field manual that gives butchers the anticipated number of rations from various types of animals, such as beef, cattle, sheep, and hogs. As the German army advanced, entire stockyards were following up behind them. The Germans discovered that a single head of beef cattle was the most efficient form of traveling meat, rendering 1,000 rations per cattle head. To get 1,000 rations from goats, sheep, or pigs took many more animals, and animals require water and fodder. It took two horses to supply one horse because the second horse had to pull enough provisions for both of them. This was a huge logistical problem for any army. The Russians were mechanized far more than the Germans, but still had. See, that's interesting. I'm not denying it. It just that's something you don't think of it. The Russians were mechanized far more than the Germans, but still had millions of horses in service when they're at least and were at least as brutal and desperate. Number one cause of death for horses was heart failure due to overexertions. Horses were also killed in combat and during artillery barrages. German soldiers in many, many texts talk of the biggest source of heartbreak for them was not seeing dead men because the men know what is happening, but seeing columns of dead and wounded horses, slipping in their own blood, trying to raise themselves from the ground and screaming in terror and confusion. It was a constant sound on the battlefield and brought terror to even the hardened soldier. This is a really interesting article. I mean, this is stuff that, I need to make a show about this stuff. The average life of a horse in the German army was about 6 months in 1940, but by 1945, the average life of a horse was about 6 weeks. At the beginning of the war, the horses used were bred for the purpose of serving the army. They were strong, well fed, hardy animals used to pulling cannons and wagons of provisions. But as those horses died, they were replaced by confiscated plow horses, parade horses, pet horses, show horses, and anything the Germans could get. And these horses did not make the transition from their previous life to a new life of pulling a 128 millimeter siege gun through 2 feet of mud while being whipped mercilessly. Germans knew that a horse could render 600 rations, not as much or as good as cattle, but it was all too common for the horse to end up this way. As the German supply situation deteriorated, officers had to make the choice of either food or ammunition on the supply train, and they usually chose ammunition. Interesting. Well, the camp one is from Helmut Jung. Another story from Pravda, the actual one, not the limit imitations on cable. I would have thought horses would have been one of the biggest animal casualty groups. Yep. Yeah, I mean they're yeah. Like you always see you see that they make several different manufacturers make like cows and stuff for like Normandy. Like one of the manufacturers makes like dead cows, and I'm just talking about in 20 millimeter. I'm sure they have it in other stuff as well. Dead cows that would be like in a field, like when paratroopers would land or something like that. But I'd be surprised if you're in that kind of a supply situation that you're not, every cow isn't like there's not just cows just a grazing. Never looked that up before. Hey, that's what we're here for, to learn. Oh, where's that island? Ramri? Hope I left it on that same page. Oh, good. It's still here. It's still here. I didn't lose it. Let's see here. Ramri Island. Where the F is that? I know, it's in the Pacific. Ramri. It's in Burma. Oh, and it's not really an island. Yeah, that's where it is. There's a little red hyphenated little Ramri Island. Let's look on the satellite view. Whole lot of swamp ass there. Wow, this is talk about a juncture of different rivers. Look at that. There's a scenario. Okay, you guys are on an island and you have to get it out. Ramri Island. And to put Japanese on an island that they can't pronounce because they can't pronounce R's, right? Or is it L's? I don't know. Maybe it's L's. On a different note, are you going to do a test setup this weekend with all their scenery kit? Too hot. I don't think so. I may do it, but I'm not counting on it. It's just so hot. It was 106 degrees, a real feel of 106 yesterday, which means my garage only felt like 92. No, and I'm surprised I found all those figures that I hadn't brought up to this level yet. I got 20 other figures. I got to redo their nameplates, and I think they're all German. Yeah, so we don't need any Germans for a while. We got enough of these Kraut bastards. Yeah, it'd be silly not to redo these figures and just do new ones. I'm not going to be happy with how these look. But even though I'm just redoing the basing, I mean, hell, it's on the same penny and everything. It still takes a while. Only thing you can do is just make sure you stick to it. Just keep working on it. Ramri Island in Burma. I'm going to read about that scenario with crocodiles and Japanese and yeah. We've been having really cool temperatures in New York. Oh, it's coming. And the good thing about my garage is cooler than outside by a lot. It's somewhere in between inside the house and outside. I mean, it's the guy did a really good job as far as insulation, and the lighting out there is superb. So, I mean, I could set it up here, but then I'm not going to paint, and I really don't want to do that. But before you came on, I need to set up scenarios that based on weapon systems, like a mortar. Like, okay, how do we handle the mortar? How do we handle, um, using an FO? How do we handle, deviation, that kind of stuff? Paint a German anti-tank gun in a T-34 with some guys on it. How do you handle, you fire at the T-34, and it could be something simple, like it could be like three T-34s have to make it across the board. You got one anti-tank gun. It doesn't have to be fair. It's just a thing. It's just a what kind of a game is this? It's not a game at all. It's just a thing. Yeah, this is the one of the loaders the 80 millimeter mortar. There's an 81. I can't remember. I think the German's an 80. Yeah, we're not going to have cool weather here for. I mean, yesterday morning it was so hot. It was. I stepped out of the house and it was like still. There's your first problem. It's still, so no breeze, freaking humid as hell, and like high 80s, and the sun wasn't even out. That's the one thing I can actually handle it being in the hundreds in the daytime, because the sun's out. But like if it's at night and it's like 85 degrees and still and swampy, like why? Like the sun's not even out. And they aren't. It's not that way all year round. It just happens to be like right now. It's just super super humid. So I want to get out. I want to get that airbrush out with a 2 millimeter needle and see if I can do some spray stuff. But of course, that means I'm painting another German vehicle. I don't need more German vehicles. But I got some Maltiers that definitely can use some of that squiggly camo. Got to hide those jokers. Maybe I'll do that, but that involves going out into the swamp ass land. But I don't think I'm going to set it up because I'm probably need to spend a couple hours doing it. I don't really want to be a couple hours, commit to a couple hours doing that. Oh, and then picking it also up. But other than buying some talus, and only because I could use these little rocks I have, but they're like gray. I need stuff that looks like chunks of like wall, plaster and stuff like that. Not a lot, like maybe 10% of the brick mix. It's just something so it's not just bricks. Because we already have beams and stuff like that. Just to add a little bit of variety. Gotta run some errands, beat the crowd. Maybe catch you later today. Hobby on. All right, man. Thanks for stopping by as always. Yeah, you live in the crowd. You live in Crowdlandia. How many Soviets do I have? I've got a mortar team. I mean, Soviets that I like, how they look, which would be these guys. I got one, two, three, four riflemen. I got another squad, but I don't like how they look. I don't think I'm gonna spend the effort to. At the end of the day, I'm not gonna be happy with them. And I've got a mortar, so that's you could go take out the mortar. That'd be all right. I'm missing a mortar dude. No, where is he? Here he is. Problem is, he's got a great coat on. Okay, 4-man mortar team. Here's the mortar for him. I should paint up a female sniper. Take out Olga. Olga Petrovka. Or whatever her name's going to end up being. So next step is, let me give this guy another coat of paint over this brown on his nameplate. Where is he? This guy. Arens. Probably should have made him separate from the machine gun. But he fits so nicely in there. Oh, it belongs like a bunker or something. You know, something with some protection. All right, I'll be right back. Yeah, because I think we could use these buildings as Soviet buildings as well. That's why, heck, that's why I did them in the colors that I did. You know, I could just take that off. This is just stuck on with the white tack. Yeah. Well, I got a fair amount of Americans too. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15, 16, 17. Guess that's the 18th guy. I mean, it's not a lot of guys, but it is for the scale of stuff that I plan on doing. I don't need any more damn Germans. I got about 30 Germans, maybe 35 Germans, once these guys get done. Okay, tufts or grass first. I think I'm going to go ahead and do the black on the edges because that way I don't have to like dance around the tufts and stuff that I do. So let me go ahead and let's move this out of the way. And let's squeeze some black out here. Yeah, I really like using this craft paint for this. This stuff in particular covers really pretty well. It's pretty thick. And I'm going to put a teeny bit of water. I suspect there's none left over from last night. Nope. And dirty water is just fine for this. And let's not use a brush that's tiny or we're going to be here all day. This is probably about right. And let's grab a lip mire. And where are we going to stack these guys that have the painted edges? Let's put them over here. Okay. Damn it. It's always fumbles. I didn't get it on anything, though. And the other thing is this craft paint is very flat. Very, very flat. All right. Here's Littmeyer. Who we got here? Gluck. Yep. Gluck sounds like the name a German chicken would make. Do they cluck? No, they gluck. Gluck. Is everybody's favorite pedo, Feltner. P.O. in the Speedo. Yeah, it takes a while just to do something simple like, oh, all I gotta do is fill in the blank. Well, that filling in the blank takes a while. Ramree Island, huh? Gator attack. You fuck up now! Not gator, crocodile. I always play these games in the con. I think it's called the Sword in Africa or whatever. It's a sword in the flame type thing, but there's always these special rules like lions attacks and stuff like that. Just be in the middle, just minding your own business, and all of a sudden you'd get attacked by, fill in the blank. Now, this game actually does not have stats for Italians and Japanese. So, probably not best to start with either one of those two, because I'm going to have to make the stats for the weapons. Stuff that is well within my capabilities. I just want to be able to play the game for a little bit before I have to make those. All that weapons data is available online. If the bolt action rifles are all the same, then they're not going to be that different, like range wise and stuff like that. Soviet tank crew. These guys, I'm just going to write a number. I'm going to paint a number on the base, on the underside. I don't want it to be someone in particular. It'll just be one of the guys that are in the crew of the tank that are represented by this guy. Because they're only going to be represented by one of these figures if A, they bail out of the vehicle, and B, they successfully bail out of the vehicle. If they die and get burnt to a crisp, well, you don't need a figure to represent them now, do you? Because otherwise, I'd need dismounts for every crew member. Yeah, it's weird to look at a figure that doesn't have a name on the stand. I didn't want to put a little stand that would take a little number like a 1 or something like that. I'm like, that seems I don't really go that direction. I'm probably going to let this dry when I'm done with this and then take a break. We may be on bit. We may be on bit later on today. I'm not sure. This reminds me of that one commercial I used to see as a kid all the time. There's one commercial that would frequently play. I don't know if they still do this kind of stuff, but it was a commercial for like a Civil War chess set that you could go and you pay in 27 installments of, I don't know, $50, whatever it was. But it had these hand painted figures. They were big. American Civil War. And it talked about how they were hand painted or whatever, the figures. I think the figures were just pewter colored. But the stands were up on, they were up on a stand maybe that was about this size, about the size of this. And then a figure was on top. That was your playing piece. And in the middle of the stand, it had this groove. It was pretty wide. And it showed somebody painting, I forget it was gray or blue. You know, one side has them all blue, the other one has them all gray. That was your figures or whatever. And it showed this picture of somebody painting that. And it was really satisfying to watch painting the not the edge of the stand, it was really like the middle of the stand, but it was satisfying to see that. And I just was just thinking about that. I'm like, oh, this is pretty satisfying, painting the edge of these things. The commercial probably was like 1984, 1985, something like that. But wait, there's more. Yeah, I'm actually surprised anybody. I'm surprised anybody in Europe would be interested in the American Civil War. It's a period that's kind of, I think it's a lame. It's a lame period, and you know, I'm not. I don't have any ancestors that fought during that time. We were still in Europe, and I don't like American history to begin with. And this takes a while. Yeah, huge difference. I like the black around the edge. Makes them stand out. Makes them pop a little bit. Glad that stopped. Runaway brush. You only had one spill that I can remember. One spill of unusual size. It was like a yellow. It was a yellow I was squeezing out and just went all over the place. I'm not sure what yellow. I think it was this one. I think it was this deep yellow. There's nothing deep about this yellow. It got clogged. This yellow's much nicer. The Army Painter. Neither one of them covers worth a shit. You got to paint another color underneath. Usually brown. Start working it like a mid-color brown. Start working my way up from that. Uh-oh. I actually see. Where's my tweezer? What's going on here? Like a little hair that was stuck to the paint from before. Yeah, that is the nice thing about being nearsighted, that I don't have to worry about when I'm done and putting them out. Like, oh man, I missed a spot. Like, yeah, I'm seeing all the errors right here. Not that there's a lot of them. I'm just saying that, there's something that needs to be corrected. Relatively easy to do so. Yeah, just any simple little task with this many soldiers is going to take a while. And the mortar. The edge of the 82, right? I think the German's 80, the Soviet one's 82, and the American one's 81. Oh, search variance between different things. Wonder if the ammo could be usable in one of the other ones. I'll let you try that. Can the German 80 millimeter the 80 millimeter mortar round work in an American 81? That's a good question for the internet. Okay. So it is. We're going to wait for those to dry, and then we'll come back and do the tufts on there. But that'll be at some later point. Some later point today. All right, folks. Thanks for stopping by, and we'll catch you guys later on this weekend. Happy Saturday, folks. Bye-bye.